Hello, hello, hello. It is your girl, Shawn LeRae, back with Boss Talk. Happy Wednesday, y'all. I hope everybody out there is doing fantastic and have enjoyed a yummy and loving and family filled Thanksgiving and one filled with gratitude. So I am super grateful to be back here again this week. I think this may be like show 43 or something like that. So, yay, shout out to Boss Talk, and shout out to you all for tuning in, for following us, and for, bearing with all the little hitches and glitches that we've had as we figure this thing out. So, if you're in here, just type in the chat, let me know something about your Thanksgiving. Like, tell me, what was your favorite dish, or if something spectacular happened or something funny happened. So I want to hear all about it. So I just got back from a relaxing post weekend in Temecula, and I had the wonderful gift of hanging out with a friend that I have known for 40 years, y'all. So shout out to Steph and Dave out there at the John Wayne Airport, about to head back to New York. I love y'all. It was a fantastic week, beginning of the week with y'all, and I can't wait till we hit some more places as we have planned. Hey, Stephanie Keys, what's up, my sister? Glad to see you here. Much gratitude for you, love. Aw, and for you too. Stephanie is also a longtime friend. So you guys, tonight we are going to be talking about a topic that I have been interested in for quite a while and had no knowledge of actually what it is. And my girl Latasha over in Georgia, shout out to Latasha Matthews, LPC in Georgia, told me about a training that she had gone to on brain spotting. So, Stephanie, have you ever heard of brain spotting? Type it in the chat if you have. So, I am really excited to share this with you guys because, as a licensed marriage family therapist and a trauma recovery specialist, I'm always looking for new ways to help people move past their trauma and into their best lives. So, my guest tonight is going to tell us all about it. So let me, without any further ado from moi, I will introduce my guest to you. His name is John Edwards. John was born in Guyana, South America, and currently maintains a full-time private psychotherapy practice in Oakland, with specialties in treating addictions, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, trauma, and couples/relationship therapy. John is licensed in the state of California, New York, Washington State, and British Columbia, Canada. He truly enjoys working with individuals, couples, and families who would like to transform their lives. John is the first Black/African American male psychotherapist in the world, you heard me, to become a certified Gottman Method couples therapist. He trained directly with Doctors John and Julie Gottman, who are the co-founders of the Gottman Institute, one of the premier couples therapy trainings institutes in the world. He is also the first Black psychotherapist to become an international brain spotting trainer, and trained also directly by David Grand, PhD, the founder and developing of the brain spotting method. He graduated with a Bachelor of Social Work with departmental honors from Atlantic Union College in Lancaster, Massachusetts. John holds a Master's of Social Work degree with a concentration in health and mental health from Walla Walla, Washington, and a 2-year postmaster's certificate in psychodynamic psychotherapy from City University of New York. Whoop, whoop. Hunter College School of Social Work. John has completed many different postgraduate trainings in various treatment modalities. Primarily, he uses brain spotting, internal family systems, interpersonal neurobiology in his practice. John believes that everyone has the capacity to heal and recover from traumatic and negative experiences to live fulfilling lives. He has over 30 years, count them, y'all, 30 years master's experience working with individuals, couples, and families. And his experience includes both direct service and clinical supervision. He has worked in healthcare, medical and psychiatry, community mental health, the unhoused population in both prevention and rehousing and child protective services. John has served on the boards of directors for Washington State chapter of the National Association of Social Workers, and highlights his work with this Washington State chapter of NASW, including serving as the Vice President of Communications and testifying at a Washington State Senate hearing in favor of social work title protection in Washington State. Highlights of his work with the New York City chapter of NASW include past co-chair, the LBT Social Work Committee, co-founder of the Social Workers of African Descent Committee, the Finance Committee, and a member of the committee that rewrote the New York State social work licensure law. For fun, John enjoys opera, dance music, and plane spotting. So, without another word from me, please welcome to Boss Talk, John Edwards. Yay! Hello there.
Hello, Sean-Lorraine. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to come on. So, y'all, John and I have never met in person, but he comes highly recommended. And of course, I stalked him on the internet before giving him a call to ask him to be a guest on Boss Talk. So, Stephanie says she's never heard of Brainspotting, but she would love to learn. So, keep listening because we have plenty to tell you on that and so many other things. So John, first I'd like to just kind of get to know a little bit about you, and you have an extensive biography there, and you've done a lot of amazing things. But I'd like to go back to when you decided to become a therapist. Why did you decide to go into this field?
I am perhaps one of the few people who have a pretty defining moment in terms of a profession. So I actually, when I was an undergrad at Atlantic Union College, which is now closed, back in the 80s, I, like a lot of young Black kids, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I had to do organic chemistry. I was like, yeah.
Not so much.
So anyway, I tried out a bunch of different majors, and then it took me 5 years to complete undergrad. It's a whole different story. But anyway, it took me 5 years to complete undergrad. And I started doing, I was a psychology major. I had 5 majors in college, just like one per year. So I was a psychology major, and at the time, it just felt kind of removed from people, and I really wanted to be involved with people right away. So I switched my major from psychology to social work because I knew I would get direct experience at that time. Plus, my mom was like, "You need to graduate."
We're not doing this no more.
Right. And I distinctly remember we went to a job fair. And at the job fair, it's back in the days when, you'd go to some kind of convention center and there'd be all of these, AT&T. This just would be like a lot of different companies with representatives there. And I remember this woman was there, and she had 2 kids with her. One was in a baby stroller, and the other one was probably like 5-ish or so. And she was there, and the 5-year-old had this kind of giant bucket of popcorn that she was walking around with. And she went to this table, and because the kid is 5 and not that tall, went to put the bucket of popcorn on top of the table and missed, and the popcorn with butter went everywhere, like all over there. And again, this was back in the day when they had applications and flyers and it went everywhere. And and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." And there was, so there was a lot of chaos, and the people behind the desk were not happy, right behind the
Uh-oh.
table. They were not happy, and I just distinctly remembering to myself, I'm like, as a social worker, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to help this person who is clearly trying to improve their life circumstance, or trying to get a different job or a job or something, but for some reason lacked the knowledge and skill set and resources,
Yes,
right?
resources, big one.
Uh, some childcare, or perhaps not giving your 5-year-old a big buck, which I'm sure was intended to sort of occupy the
Right,
5-year-old.
right. And of
But
course, this was pre-iPad.
yeah, this is this is in the 80s. The internet didn't exist yet.
Right,
So,
right.
or it was just being birthed.
Yeah.
And that was my moment. That I was like, okay, this is what I
Uh,
want to do. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to help people. I want to help people. Um, you know, Now today I say I want to help people transform their lives.
yes, indeed, indeed. My actual entrance into this profession was also around kids. I was directing an after-school program, and I was just shocked with how much kids knew about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and how little they knew about reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Hmm.
And it just kept sticking with me that, and at the time I was, after I left that program there, I was doing a disguise learning program that I created for kids at the after school program level. And I was doing like 4 hours a day. I'd spend 3 weeks at a school, and then I'd be off to the next school. And I loved that, being able to move around like that, but it kept gnawing at me. You should probably be doing more, doing more,
Hmm.
you know. And of course,
Yeah.
grandma always said, to she whom much is given, much is required. So
Right.
off I went back into school at like 50 years old.
Hey, better late than never.
Yes, indeed, indeed, indeed. And I've had a ball with it. So okay, so you came here from Guyana. Did you come as a child?
I came as a teenager.
Ah, okay. What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
Well, I had my family was fortunate in that my dad had a pretty good job back in Ghana, so we were able to travel abroad, which
Ah,
a lot of people in the town that I lived in were not able to do.
right.
So I had already been back and forth uh, to, I say, North America, because between the US and Canada. So it wasn't a new experience, because
Oh,
I had traveled back and forth
mhm.
from a very young age between Guyana and New York, which is uh, where my siblings were, and also in Quebec and Montreal, which is where my other sibling
Okay.
was, in Toronto and stuff. So in that sense, it wasn't like this new experience. Of course, it was an adjustment, because
Yes.
to move, different friends, just a whole bunch of different things. But it wasn't a brand new
Right.
experience for me.
Okay, okay. So now, as you became a therapist, I see that you were licensed in multiple places. I'm interested in that part. Tell me about that. How did you end up getting licensed so many places?
Oh, that's because I've lived different places. It wasn't just like I got my first license in New York, like right after I graduated.
Hmm.
Um, and then I just kept my New York license. Um,
Yeah.
and then when I moved to California, I think, at the time California had the California exam, the California written exam, and then the California oral exam.
Yes, I remember
Back in the day. Um,
that.
so I had to take those two exams, and then I've also lived in British Columbia, so I got a license there because I worked in community mental health there, and then I lived in Bellevue, Washington State, and worked there. So I got a license there. So I just never gave up
Yeah, which is great. Makes sense.
my license. And it's fortunately those I was able to because I'm a little bit of a I like to read what the law says. Sometimes I say I should have been a lawyer. But so I will read and figure out how to get a license and figure it out. And I know for a lot of people it's kind of frustrating. But I just went, I read, and I followed all the instructions. Sent in my application, paid my money, and then they sent me a license because I
Well, that's all right. I bet. Now, you didn't have to take exams at these places?
Well, I did have to take the California, because at the time
Yeah.
California had the California exam,
Yeah, they're
the
stinky.
California written exam, and then the oral exam. So I did have to take that. And then when I moved to British Columbia, they would not accept the California exam. And the exam that I took in New York at the time to get licensed was a different level of the ASWB exam. So I had to go take the ASWB exam as part of the process of getting what's called registration in British Columbia and in Canada, but as part of getting my registration/license. When I moved to Washington State, I had everything. So it was just a matter of filling out the forms and paying the fees. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking into getting licensed in other places. I've looked in a few states. Texas was one of them. Georgia was another. And because we're from California and we have such stringent guidelines, a lot of places we don't have to test.
Right.
So that's good. And I think there was some reciprocity with the Arklatex region, with this Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. So I sort of perused over that. And, of course, we had a little bit of reciprocity during the pandemic because a lot of kids were coming home from school and clients were home with families and that sort of thing. So, and there's, of course, all this license portability is as you well know, is at the top of the list on things that as far as legislature now, because we are, we have the gift and the curse of virtual therapy.
Right. And I think part of the challenge is that a lot of state legislatures, and people need to know, people think licensure is like for the therapist. Really, it's not. It's a political process. It's like a big political process. And so there's a lot of politics involved. But, a lot of these licensure laws, when they were written, no one thought that we would all be locked in our houses for 3 years. Like, no one thought that. It never crossed anybody's mind.
Of course.
And so all of these rules and regulations were built around sort of an insular mindset. And we also, people weren't traveling. If you knew somebody that traveled from New York to, Texas or something for business, they were kind of a special person. Like, oh, so-and-so travels.
Exactly.
Right. But today, with such a global economy and so much interstate commerce and stuff like that and technology, the landscape really has shifted. And, state licensure boards are, well, some don't want to come, some are coming kicking and screaming. Right? But there needs to be an acknowledgement and a different way of doing things.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm fortunate in that, there are a lot of people that live in New York and come out to California and vice versa. And so when I see couples, I often can see couples because one person, one member of the couple is in New York and the other person is here. So we can legally
I love that you said that.
we can legally do a session.
Right.
But it's challenging if people are, somebody is in New York and then they go to Georgia and they're in couples therapy and they have to go to Georgia. I mean, if you just think about like sports, for example, if you have a basketball player who is in therapy and they're traveling, or a baseball player or a football player, and they're traveling to different states. And, we all know, it's a lot of issues going on in sports. A lot of mental health issues, right?
Okay.
And so now, let's say, you're you're in California, you play for the Warriors, and then you have to go to Boston. What are you supposed to do? Miss your session because your therapist isn't licensed in Massachusetts? And, if you're there for some kind of playoffs or something, you could be there for, a week or so.
Absolutely.
So, and with the, it's,
right.
so
And you can't tell you're stressed. Hey, take a break. I'm going to be away. Right. No.
Exactly. So I think this is, something that state licensure boards and state legislatures just need to sort of modernize themselves around. And it's a matter of willpower. A lot of things are just a matter of willpower and common sense. That's
exactly
my
for sure
opinion.
that. Yeah. And when I think about even the same, like, sports people, celebrity clientele, and now, like you said, people are working everywhere. And so tech people are always on the road, and, and many of them work remotely all the time, even pre-pandemic. And so, it's really not a user-friendly system as it is now. And so hopefully y'all, they'll get on board and do something about that. Hey, Soror Rhonda, how are you, love? Good evening. Great topic. I'm a counselor. Yes, you are. And currently working as a behavior interventionist. There are so many children between the ages of 5 through 9 that have been traumatized. 100%. Absolutely. And that's, as I said, that was when I was shocked. I know that might sound very elitist in some way, but I was kind of shocked to see just what children were living through. Very different from my upbringing in Toledo, Ohio. But again, it had its drawbacks as well. But I think it's really even more so now than ever with just the pandemic alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good question I'd like to ask you, John. We're going to get into the brain spotting, so I don't know whether I should wait and ask this, but it just popped up, so here we go. Can brain spotting be done with children?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
We have a whole specialty training called Brain Spotting with Children and Adolescents.
Well, yeah, look at that.
Brain spotting can be done with adults. Brain spotting can be done with perinatal mental health. There's a specialty training for that. Brain spotting can be done with groups. We have a training for that. Addictions. Actually, my colleague, Steve Sawyer, is going to be doing a training because I just got the information. I don't have it directly in front of me. Anyway, he's going to be doing a training in January for the how to use brain spotting in with youth who are in care, who are in some kind of residential treatment program.
Ooh,
and so it's a very versatile modality, and can be used with a lot of different things, and you can integrate it with other modalities as well. Like one of the most common modalities that people who practice brain spotting integrated with is internal family systems.
I'm trained in that.
Yeah. So except that for brain spotting, we take a more implicit approach, whereas in IFS, it's more an explicit approach. But it can work really, really well together. You can do brain spotting and art therapy. There's a lot of the brain spotting and yoga. There's a lot of different things because it's a flexible modality that, while it has structure and setups, it does not have prescribed protocols that you must follow, or else you're going to get in trouble.
Nice. So you can get creative with it, get jiggy with it.
Exactly.
Well, exactly. When you said you can use it with other modalities, the first thing that popped into my head was art therapy. I'm a creative, I use art as a healing tool. I am not an registered art therapist. Disclaimer: I can barely draw a straight line, but we still have some fun with art and how I feel like art wakes up different areas in the brain. So we have a question from Rhonda. She says, how do you rewire your brain from trauma? So before you answer that, thank you. That's a great question, Rhonda. Before you answer that, What is brain spotting? Give it your definition. How do you tell people what it is?
So I usually start by saying that I'm going to tell you cognitively what brain spotting is, but one really doesn't get the full appreciation of brain spotting until one has experienced a brain spotting session. So it's sort of like ice cream.
Ooh.
You can tell somebody what ice cream is like, but until they actually taste that ice cream, it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same.
Yeah, speaking to ice cream queen, I
Okay.
totally understand and get it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So brain spotting, it started out with David Grant, who is the founder and developer of Brainspotting. And David used to be an EMDR therapist. And he was doing EMDR with one of his clients when he says, these are his words, not mine, the hand of God took over, and he started this whole process of brain spotting. And over months and a few years, he developed this modality and continues to develop the modality. So it's a neuro experiential process in which we allow our brains and bodies the opportunity to move from dysregulation to regulation.
Wow.
So what do I mean by that? You got something that's bothering you, and you're like, well, brain spotting can help you sort that through. And it does so by what we call finding a relevant eye position. Okay. And we can do just like a really quick, this will take like a minute. So just think about something. For those of you who are watching, just think about something. Don't think about the biggest thing in your life. Just something that's like mildly irritating, annoying, whatever. Okay. And then without moving your head, just look to your left. And just notice what your sense is of that issue as you look to your left. And now look directly ahead. And again, just notice what your sense is of that issue. And now look to your right. Okay. What did you experience, Sean LeRae?
I felt a real sort of like a relaxation come over me. Like I noticed I dropped my shoulders, and my breath seemed to slow down a little bit.
Did you notice any of that in relation to where you were looking?
Oh, you mean like over here, something that I feel this? So yeah, so it started when I looked over here, I started to feel the calm to my left. I started to feel a little bit calmer. As I looked forward, I almost felt like it's okay. It's okay. Like that. And then over to this side is where my right side, I noticed the breathing, I think.
Yep. So that's just a very, very basic demonstration. So in brain spotting, we say where you look affects how you feel. And so for those of you who are watching who are like, well, I don't really feel anything, we just need to give you a little bit more time, which we don't have because we're on a limited time period here. But the idea is you can look in one direction and you can feel a sense of calm, or you can feel a sense of sadness. And then you can look in a different direction. And on the same issue, you can feel anger and rage. And so the idea is when we get that fixed eye position after someone has told us about whatever the issue is, okay, I got my brain here. Then take out my brain. Got my brain. This is my brain. This is my brain, right? And so what happens is that in most therapy, this is our neocortex and our prefrontal cortex over
Yeah.
here. In most therapy, we do a lot of neocortical talking. The challenge is that this part of the brain is not involved in emotional regulation.
Right. Right.
Okay?
Interesting.
So it's in our subcortex, in our limbic system, which is right here, our brainstem, and then in our body. And so brain spotting aims to bypass this part of the brain, bypass our neocortex through the where we're looking right into our limbic system and where we can begin to rewire. Somebody asked about rewiring, where
Mm-hmm.
we can begin to rewire and reprocess experiences to move us from dysregulation to regulation. Okay? It's That's kind of the basic of brain spotting. We're aiming to get access to the parts of the brain that are involved in emotional regulation
Mm-hmm.
that bring about the change, that bring about the neurogenesis, okay? The
Mm-hmm.
capacity for our brain to change and shift and have different perspectives. Our brain and body is self-scanning and it's self-repairing, right? If I were to drop my Mac right now, knocking for Micah, if I were to drop my Mac right now and the screen cracks, it can't repair itself. I got to go down to the Mac store.
Trust me, I know that for a fact.
Right. I got to go down to the Apple store and have them, replace it, or I got to get a new computer.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain and bodies, however, have the capacity to heal and repair itself,
I love that.
right? If we cut our finger and we put a band-aid over it, what happens? The brain and body takes care of it. We don't have to every 2 minutes take the band-aid off to look and see what's happening.
Right.
Just put it on and starts doing it. Now, obviously, when we have, sort of, if we're in a severe car accident or something, we need more help. And this is also the process of brain spotting. We have a lot of different setups and a lot of different ways in which we can be attuned and present with someone who's got more significant trauma in order to help their brain and bodies heal and recover. I'm going to put my brain down. So my hand is getting tired.
This is
So
magnificent.
the idea is that I am here with you. I'm going to attune and be present with you, because oftentimes when we experience trauma, it's a lonesome process. It's happening alone. And even if it's a group trauma, we're still having our own experience. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So trauma is about how we experience something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that then becomes part of the healing process. And if we can create this process through which I help you as the client to identify the issue, I then help you to identify where inside of your body, doesn't matter where inside of you do you feel that issue, that anger or that frustration.
Mm.
And then typically I use what's called a pointer to help find the eye position. We have various ways of doing that. And then you focus on the pointer, and then you have your awareness go on your body. And then if you're just able to let yourself go, your whole system, a neuro experiential process will start in which you engage in what we call in brain spotting, focused mindfulness. And this is where your brain and body is going to start starts going all over the place. You might go back to when you were 10, you might go back to when you were 22. And we don't do a lot of talking in brain spotting. And it's really a different way of being a therapist. And, in talk therapy, we talk, we do interpretations, we confront, we ask questions, all this kind of stuff. In brain spotting, we hold the space and we hold the frame around the client, and we're present, and we have something we say in brain spotting, we stay in the tail of the comment, which means we don't get in front of what we think the client ought to be doing. Why do we not do that? Because Our brains estimated, some people say it's higher. Our brains are estimated to have 4 quadrillion neuronal connections.
Wow.
Right? So a quadrillion is a billion times a million. So that's how much we got going on inside. Additionally, our subcortex makes decisions very quickly, much more quickly than our neocortex, right? So this part of the brain makes it decisions much more quickly. Uh, I think it's like 50 milliseconds to make a decision, whereas our neocortex, it's about 500. So this is 10 times fast. Right? And this is what I say. And you know, I tend to use this example sometimes about, so women tend to have this, people call it the sixth sense or whatnot. I say it's your inner, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can be walking along, you don't have eyes behind your head, and you can just feel someone walking behind you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn around. Well, what is that? Right?
Right.
What is that? That is a process deep within us.
Mm-hmm.
Our subcortical processes and our bodies pick that up before our neocortex picks it up.
I
Right?
like that. Yeah.
And those are the processes that brain spotting um, intends to harness and help people to really move from emotional dysregulation to regulation. Some people have had very challenging lives and some not as much. Um, but it's a way not just to sort of manage symptoms. And I'll use myself an example. I got a difficult time driving, used to have a difficult time driving across these bridges in the Bay Area, especially the San Francisco Bay Bridge, which is like 25 stories in the air. I don't know whose bright idea was that. Well, that's because they have to, have those giant cargo
Yeah.
ships go on to go to the Oakland port. But it's pretty high. And I used to get really nervous. I used to get really nervous when I was going across that bridge. And then there's another bridge, the Dumbarton Bridge, that
Oh,
I only used to be able to drive in the inside lane, like just in the inside lane, because I couldn't drive in the outside lane, which just has a nightmare.
yeah.
And I've done brain spotting, and I have to tell you, I don't think I've done the most intense brain spotting on just driving across the bridge and stuff like that. And I tell you, I can drive across the Bay Bridge now. I can drive across it. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's like stress free or drama free,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably come down from like a 90 to about a 35. So
Mm-hmm.
there's still a little tinge there every now and again, but I can do it.
Right.
The Dunbarton Bridge, I can actually drive on the outside lane now. And every time I'm like, oh, let me see if I can do it. Let me see if I can do it. Oh, look at me driving. And of course, people are always like driving by, going, "What the hell is he doing?" Because I'm like, yeah, look at me driving on the outside lane. Um, and that is because of brain spotting. So it brings about healing and recovery rather than symptom management. When I'm driving across that bridge, I don't have to self-talk myself. I don't have to breathe. I don't have to be like, let me breathe.
Right.
Let me ground myself, because my body has taken care of that during the brain spotting process. Do I have more to do? Yes. But,
And
it's
don't we all? But
it's enough.
I love that you said that it's not 100%, but because that is, that's the goal sometimes, is to bring relief, right? To bring about a change. So we're not telling, the client coming in, even for talk therapy, I got some magic cure here. You're going to talk this out and you're going to feel so much better. But just addressing whatever things you can address in the therapy room, in the brain spotting room, brings about a change. And that shift can make all the difference in the world. Because
Yeah.
somebody who is really entrenched in some heavy duty, you know, trauma and multiple traumas and big T ones, as they call them, you know, anything is something, so feeling that relief from 90 to 35 is a huge jump.
Yes. And the thing that I say to my clients, and I say to people in general, and if people take nothing else away, take this away. I say, you are not your trauma.
There.
You are not your trauma. There are so many people who say that because of my trauma, this is why I am the way I am, or this is who I am. I'm like, no, you're not. You are who you are despite what happened to you,
Right.
right?
Mm.
So if you're a musician and you're like, oh, I became a musician. No, you were always a musician. Trauma doesn't like create a musician in you.
Right, right,
It's
right.
like, oh, let's have some trauma. What do you? Yeah, let's make this one a musician.
What
That
shall
is right. Like it just doesn't work that
this
way.
one? I'm a fine artist.
Yeah,
This one.
it's like we have these are the things that are intrinsic to us, and then trauma can interrupt our access to those things. And so this is why it's important we get healing and recovery so we can gain access and transform our lives, right?
Oh, I like that access.
Yeah.
Gigi, that's Gigi there. She's from Oakland, by the way. And she says she crossed the Bay Bridge every day for many years, as well as the Dumbarton Bridge on several occasions. So she knows exactly where your pain was coming from.
Yeah. and this is not even counting the traffic.
Oh, yes,
Right.
that's that
Yeah.
in itself, right?
Yeah.
So you are not your trauma. I love that because I say that so often in my practice. So I want to ask, so now a person has done some brain spotting and they have found a semblance of healing. They are functioning much better. Is talk therapy then the vehicle? Do they need to talk through it? How does it work in conjunction with talk therapy?
So, it gets a little nuanced because when we're talking, we're using our neocortex because that's where language resides in our Broca's area. And so we're not really engaging in a full way the parts of the brain that are involved in emotional regulation. So some people do talk therapy. Sometimes it's necessary to talk with someone as a brain spotting practitioner to understand, to get a sense of what's going on with them, because it helps the relationship between the client and the therapist become stronger. But the brain spotting process itself, it's not a talk therapy process. So when I'm doing brain spotting with someone and I have my pointer up, what I'm doing is I'm sending good vibes and good energy to them. And I may ask a question, but very little talking happens. So it's not like, what are you feeling now? Oh, you should go do this. So this is how brain spotting is different. If someone says, I'm at a door, right? So there's some modalities that will say, well, do you want to open the door? And the client goes, maybe. And well, why did you open the door and see what's there? Like, that's a process. In brain spotting, we don't do that. In brain spotting, if the person says, oh, I've arrived at a door, we may not say anything and let the person's system figure out what it wants to do. Or we may say, just notice what it's like being at the door. And then the person may say, it's scary. And we say, notice where that scariness is inside of you or in your body. And just have your attention there and see where it takes you. And some people might say, again, this internal rewiring and processing, and they may say, yeah, I don't think I'm ready to open this door.
Oh.
And that's okay, because their system has come up with that information. Some people may say, I really need to see what's behind this door so that I can decide what I want to do next. And then they open the door and, they see their dead grandmother, or they see their boss that they hate a lot, or whatever it is. And then they continue their focused mindfulness process. So brain spotting in and of itself, I like to say, is not that terribly difficult. It is, however, very difficult for therapists because we've all been trained, myself included, because I did psychoanalytic psychotherapy. We've all been chat, interpret, All right. Brain spotting requires you to be
It is.
present. It
Mm,
requires you to be present, and we call it dual attunement,
mhm.
relationally attuned and neurobiologically attuned. And we're
Ooh,
always thinking in brain spotting, what is going on inside of this person's brain and body? And whatever the person is or isn't doing, we say, what's going on? We don't know. We don't make suppositions. We don't have to know what it is to know that something is. It's just like if you're out in the sea and you see the water come up, you don't know if it's a whale or a piece of wood, but you know there's something out there.
yeah, yeah,
The client knows eventually,
yeah.
will tell you if it's a whale or a piece of wood. They don't need us to interpret that it's a
Right,
whale or a wood.
right.
The client will know that. And that is the phenomenal power of
Mm,
um, of brain spotting, right?
mhm,
And this is the thing. It's an amazing. It's it does feel a little weird. It does feel a
mhm,
little weird because you do it and people are like, "What's happening?" It also perhaps one of the more challenging things about brain spotting for clients is that because it bypasses the neocortex, which wants to do logic and figure things out,
mhm.
people will get to emotional stuff like that, and then they will go to such depths and they will go, yeah, that's not what I was planning to do. I was just not planning to go that deep.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they'll say, I had no idea I was that angry. I had
Mm,
no idea, right? So they get in contact with this stuff that really helps to reprocess. And the thing is, once it's reprocessed and the system figures it out, that's it.
mm.
You don't have to like go and redo it or anything else, right? It's done.
That's interesting.
Sometimes people go, it's not full and it takes a longer time depending on the history and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But, a lot of times, it just people will be like, oh, okay, I guess I've had this discussion with my sister or my brother, and I've brain spotted it, and I've realized that they're not going to change their mind. And more importantly, I don't need them to change their mind because
Okay.
I'm good with where I am. And people will go, they'll go, just got over, Thanksgiving. And people go to Thanksgiving dinner and behave completely differently. And all the family is like, what's wrong with you? And then they say, well, I had some brain spotting. So my
And then they're like,
system,
call
because
somebody.
it shifted, right, doesn't need to engage with you in the same way because it's shifted, it's
Mhm.
reprocessed, it's rewired. And so the stuff that used to cause certain neuronal networks to pop up don't, because those neuronal networks have shifted.
I love that. So Jean, thank you for tuning in. I saw you said before that you were very interested in this. Are you a clinician? And she loves that you are not your trauma. Absolutely. Oh, hey, Charity Marie. Do you know Charity? She's a clinician. She
Oh,
used to
yes, I know
be
Charity.
us.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Hello,
Yeah.
lady.
Charity is a boss lady.
She definitely is a boss lady. Are you so she's doing brain spotting. Awesome. I want to do brain spotting so bad. So John is saying that he's not doing the training right away. I would like want to learn tomorrow. So I just had to keep working on him, y'all. So um
I mean, there are other trainers. I'm not the
I ain't
only
talking about no
trainer.
I already told you that over the phone. Now you made me say it out loud in the universe, right? Ain't happening. You. No, listen.
Oh,
If any I Latasha was at one point my coach. She's the person that told me about you. And if Latasha says so, I'm doing it.
okay.
So
Thanks, Latasha.
that's it. That's it. Out of Georgia. So now did you do during the pandemic, were you doing virtual brain spotting trainings?
Actually, yes, that is. So so I am the founder of what's called BIPOC brain spotting trainings, um, which I had the first training in December 2019 in Atlanta. And the reason why I did that, because as a Black person, I was just really just tired of the micro and macro aggressions that occur in training. So you're just tired of it. Like you can't see it, but I do have really long locks.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And, white
How
people
good
just come and start
also.
playing with my locks. And I'm like, I'm not a dog. You just can't come and start touching me. I'm
Exactly,
like,
right. Oh my God.
imagine if I went up to a white lady and be like, ooh, blonde hair. Wow,
Yeah,
look at it. Yeah, y'all would not see me again. I'd be in some dungeon somewhere.
that's thank you. Hello.
Right? But so I just decided, you know what? We just need our own space.
Yeah, I
People were
love that
upset
you
with
do that.
that, and they're like, "Oh, you're creating division." I'm like, then y'all just need to stop doing racist shit. Oops, sorry, I said that
Up
out
there we go.
loud.
Have y'all heard that word before? Yeah, they
So
have.
yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
so
so
Charity
I
says
just
you're
stopped doing
awesome.
stuff. Stop engaging in these micro and macro aggressions, and
Yes.
then So anyway, so I did that. I did one on the East Coast, and then the plan was to do one on the West Coast in March of 2020, and then uh a week before, I was like, you know what? I don't know what's going on in the world. I'm going to cancel the training. And then 3 days later, the training was supposed to be in San Francisco. The world shut down.
Shut
Like San
down.
Francisco shut down. And so then we converted. We didn't know honestly, we didn't know what we were doing. And we converted the training over to Zoom, and we converted that in-person training that was supposed to happen in San Francisco in March of 2020 to June of 2020. And then what we discovered is that brain spotting works well online as well.
Oh,
It's
that's
different than in person,
yeah.
but it works well. And so all of my trainings that I've done, and I've trained, I don't know, like 1,200 people by now, in brain spotting. Uh, 2020 all online, 2021 all online, and then I just did, which you missed. I just did the first in-person training in Honolulu back in mid. Uh, Actually, that's not true, but I'll finish the sentence. I did the first in-person training in the U.S. in Honolulu, in Hawaii, in mid-October. But I also went to Dakar, Senegal, and I did a brain spotting phase 1 training there in mid-August. So that was my first in-person training.
I'm
Was
just
in
like, how
Senegal,
come
and then
why wasn't I like that's just so not good. And Charity Marie, why didn't you call me? Charity says that you are awesome. I tend to agree. Oh hey, Camellia, how you doing, darling? Camelia's on the board of my of an organization that we both serve on the board. I'm the president of the Black Women's Network, and she is a longtime member and board member. Let's see, what else did Charity say? John is the bomb. She took your BIPOC training. Charity, girl,
thank you,
you didn't
Charity.
call me. You didn't call me. And Jean says she so that I think that means you're not a clinician, but you heard about it.
Shared about it.
Okay.
In the interest of full transparency, Jean is my sister, so she's heard a lot about it.
Then no, she heard about it time and time and time again. I love it. Well, welcome
So,
to Boss Talk, Jean. Thank you for tuning in to watch your big brother, little brother.
oh, I'm the little brother. She
You're the
will
little
be the
brother,
first to tell you
the
that.
baby boy.
Or
Okay.
maybe the second to tell you that. My other sister would probably be the first to tell you that.
I guess, right? Well, listen. So, first of all, how was it in Hawaii? I know y'all didn't just brain spot.
We did, Hawaii was great. It was also our first hybrid training where we had an in-person component and an online component. And we worked really hard to make sure that the online people weren't just like looking at a training happening, that they could feel involved. And so we do demonstrations, sort of practice runs so people can watch us, and then people do practicums. And so we had two of the demonstrations were in live, from people that were live in person. And then we did two of the demonstrations with people that were online, so that people can also see that brain spotting can occur online. Well, you just did it. I just gave you a look right, look left, look directly ahead, and you had a little bit of brain spotting experience. So, right, again, it is different, and there are people that definitely prefer sort of in person, but it can also be done online. And like I said, the vast majority of people have been doing it online for the past couple of years. I'm back in the office, but I do I do have my little blue
Oh yes. Oh yes.
my blue accessory.
Right. Right.
But it
I have multicolor ones, so
yeah. So it can also be done both online, and I'm repeating myself, both online and in person. But
mm,
it's a great modality. Part of what for me that makes brain spotting, which is what I primarily use. Again, it's not that I don't talk to clients, but even when I'm talking to clients, I'm like sneakily doing some brain spotting things.
right, right, right.
Well,
No.
uh, but but I sorry, I lost my train of thought. What I like about brain spotting is, a few of the brain spotting principles. We have what's called uncertainty principle, which means that we don't presume to know what is best for the client,
Yes.
right? In terms of their pathway to healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So obviously, if somebody is in pain, we want to be like, it's probably might be helpful to you not to be in as much pain, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't presume to know what is the best path for that person to be not in as much pain, right? So that is the uncertainty principle, and we also don't presume to know that maybe there's something that's even more painful that
Mm.
that person needs to figure out first before this other pain is worked on, and we have the
Oh,
system do that,
okay,
right?
wait, say that again. Let's talk. Let's get that. Yeah, go with that again.
So, in the uncertainty principle, we don't presume to know from a brain spotting perspective what is best for the client, what is the best pathway. We have the
Mm-hmm.
client, so we guide the client to help the client system come online so that it can figure out what is the best pathway.
Mm,
So, if someone is in pain, we might think, and generally speaking, we might think, well, it's probably better if you're not in as much pain.
mm-hmm.
But we don't presume to know the pathway in which the person will get to that point where they're not in as much pain. Because there could be something even more painful
Mm-hmm.
that their system needs to work out before. So, you know, right? So I'm just going to deal with this because
Right.
this is less painful than dealing with this other thing, which could
Yeah,
even be even more painful. And so the system has to figure that out.
I love it. I
Right. So
love it.
rather than telling the person, and look, you have to, there are things that sometimes you do just in a real world sense, right? You have to say to
Right.
the client, okay, you need to pay your rent.
Right. That
Like, you
part.
need to pay your rent. Now, we can brain spot what's going on around sort of not paying the rent and stuff like that, but I do need for you to write a check
Right. Right.
and give it to the landlord because we don't want you to become unhoused.
Right.
Right? So
Exactly.
there's those sort of practical things. But
Yes.
in terms of like what's happening that it's difficult for you to pay the rent. And the person might say, I work with a lot of immigrants, they might say, oh, I needed to send money back home to the Philippines or to Ivory Coast or something, right? So these are all complicated things that the person's system needs to figure out. And we don't presume to necessarily know the pathway. So that's the uncertainty principle. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing is tail of the comet, which is when we're in a brain spotting session, we're always following where the client is leading, not leading the client where we think they should be
Yes.
going. Right? Yeah. So, and
Uh,
then we have what we call the dual attunement frame, which is the idea that we do our best to be attuned with someone neurobiologically. Are they winking? We don't pathologize. It's a very non-pathologizing, should be
yeah.
non-pathologizing process. So if somebody says, I'm angry or I don't want to do this, we don't say, well, you should, because how are you going to get better? Just go notice that you don't want to do it. It's not a problem that you don't want to do it. We just want you to notice what's happening there so you can figure out where you need to go,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then relationally, how am I with you? And the relational part starts from the moment you get that email or that phone call that says, hey, I want to come see you. I heard about brain spotting. Or, I want to come see you. I looked you up on psychology today and you seem like somebody. But it starts right there.
Yeah.
And so when someone comes in, being able to be present with them and hear their story. It's not just about, all right, you're here, great, we're going to start doing brain spotting. Like I really need to have a sense of the sadness that you're experiencing or the anger and helping to frame that. Again, it's about bringing the client's internal emotional system online so that they can move from dysregulation to regulation. That's
Yeah,
what brain spotting is about.
I love it so. So Charity agrees that uncertainty is so powerful. So I am really, really even more intrigued now. So we're just a little over. Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, y'all okay out there too? Okay, cool. So I think I might have asked you this, and now as I'm about to frame it, I think I remember your answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So I know that you are not trained in EMDR.
I am not sure that
I
EMDR.
was because
That would
that's
be
what I'm going.
correct. Yes.
But is there something that you know about it that you know is different from brain spotting, or is it along the same lines of the neural networks being engaged and the releasing and all of that? So for those of you who may not be sure, EMDR is
Movement.
movement desensitization reprocessing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, say that 3 times fast. And so is it the same? Are they cousins? What do you know?
Well, so I'm not trained in EMDR, so I don't really know what goes
I
on
right,
in
give that
EMDR,
disclaimer,
except
right?
for sort of like what I hear. Um, what I can tell you, and this is from my discussions with David Grant, who really has, I trained with him. He's a mentor in brain spotting with me, and he used to be he started natural flow EMDR. And so I take my guidance and my knowledge from him. So some of the differences, I think, right? And there's not sometimes what happens in this discussion about EMDR versus brain spotting, it becomes this us versus them, which is better, which is not better.
Uh-huh.
I don't know anything about EMDR, so I can't say. What I can tell you, and what I've heard from people who have trained in EMDR and
Mm-hmm.
then trained in brain spotting,
Mm-hmm.
is that brain spotting allows a lot more flexibility. So EMDR, from my understanding and what people have shared with me, has protocols and steps that need to be followed.
Okay.
In brain spotting, we have setups. The setups have steps. If you miss a step, we don't worry about it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
The other thing
It's kind of roll
about
with.
yeah, the other thing about brain spotting is we don't do a lot of talking and we don't do a lot of checking in and sort of,
Mm-hmm.
asking there's the subjective units of disturbance, the
Right.
SUDs. And so when I train people and they've been trained in EMDR, that's one of the things I have to say to them. This is brain spotting. This is not EMDR.
Yeah.
So we don't need for you to be checking the SUDs every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes. Just let the first process go. But I think perhaps the biggest difference is the things like the uncertainty principle,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're we're not we're not sort of guiding the client to anything,
Uh-huh. Okay.
right? So I've
Yes.
heard in EMDR some people, well, what is the negative cognition with this, right? So it's a much
Yes.
more interactive
Yes.
process.
It is. It is.
Uh, in
I've seen
brain
it.
spotting, yeah, in brain spotting, we don't ask people, what is the negative cognition. We'll just say, what are you noticing?
Mm-hmm.
And the person will be like, oh, I'm scared or whatnot, and that's the way we continue. So those are sort of the broad
Yeah.
stroke differences that
Mm-hmm.
again, a lot of this, because I'm not trained in EMDR, a lot of this is just from my talk with David and other brain spotting
Right.
trainers who were trained in EMDR and now just do brain spotting, and also people that have been trained in EMDR and come to brain spotting. And there are people that do both. There are people that do both
Mm-hmm.
EMDR and brain spotting in their practices, and they say some clients prefer brain spotting, some clients prefer EMDR. Sometimes people say I just float between the two. I start out with brain spotting and then I do EMDR. It's all look. As
Yeah.
long as people are getting better, I I don't. I won't want to get in the way of that. I can say that
Right.
as a brain spotter, this is what it's done for me, and this is why I'm sort of not sort of. This is why I'm a trainer and ambassador for Brainspotting, because it really is about dysregulation to regulation and healing and recovery. So people can live their best lives, and people can really, and it's, again, this idea of, it's not just symptom management. It's not just learning to deep breathe. It's not just learning to be like, all right, I'm just going to have to walk away now. You do brain spotting and stuff, and somebody's saying something to you, and you just be like, okay. And people be like, what's happened to you? You'd be like, because it's so organic. This is one of the biggest things about brain spotting. It is so organic that people oftentimes don't even recognize how different they are. Their friends and families tell them they're different.
Right. I love that.
Right? How come you're not cursing her out? And the person, well, why would I do that? And they're like, don't you remember you
know who you are?
Right? I don't do that, right? So because the healing has occurred, the neuronal networks have shifted and been rewired. So.
I love that. So we have a question. Hey, Lou, what's up, my friend? So that's Lou of Well Connected TV, and even more so, Well Connected Water. Is a shout out to Lou. This is really good water, y'all. I drink it. Everybody in my practice drinks it. Y'all ought to get some. Holler at Lou. He'll tell you how. Now, let's see. There was a question up here that I thought was a great question from Camellia. Does it work for people recovering from strokes?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
So the thing to recognize, but sometimes people, because when people come to Brainspotting training, they go, oh my God, and they're like, all right, we're gonna cure stuff. So it's not a cure, it's not a curative modality. So Brainspotting is not going to like reverse the impact of the stroke, right? Or if somebody has dementia, it's not gonna like make the person no longer suffer from dementia. What it will do is it will help the person's system continue their recovery. Right? So people have a stroke and maybe they can't talk and maybe they can't walk, and their frustration, Brainspotting will help with that.
I got it. Okay, that's good.
Help with the frustration, help with the sadness that they're now experiencing, that their life is different. Help with the worry. They're worried about their family, and their family is worried about them. And, right? So you would work in a Brainspotting way on those issues. There really isn't. And the other difference that it just popped into my mind for Brainspotting, you can do Brainspotting with somebody right away. There's no like, if you just had a car accident, you got to wait 6 weeks to do Brainspotting. You can do Brainspotting right away with that person. As a matter of fact, I had a client that was almost in an accident and came in, and we just Brainspotted that issue.
Right then and there. Wow.
Right then and there. So there's no, some people need a little bit of prep, psychoeducational prep about their brain. Like, I have my brain here, and show them what's going on. But even if people don't get that prep, some people are just like, fine, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And we do it. And we do the Brainspotting. So I think that would be one of the other differences between Brainspotting and EMDR. We don't have to wait for a certain period of time.
I went to I did I got to study at the Tavistock Institute in London, and it was trauma from a psychodynamic perspective. And while we were there, they talked about one of the they were talking about different modalities for trauma treatment, and someone asked the instructor about EMDR, and she didn't know, but it just happened that my roommate was trained in EMDR, and so the instructor allowed her to we had a long lunch break. We had 2-hour breaks, so she actually did some EMDR, and we got to witness it. And she did it with someone who was from Beirut, Lebanon. And in part of the conversation prior to this, they had said, that they didn't have trauma. And we all were like, what? Do you know where you live? But it was interesting because in the process of doing that, there were all these discoveries that were made, and all these tears and all this stuff that seemed almost like it was like a push button and a release. but I do agree there was a lot of I mean, I get what you're saying. There was a lot of interaction. There was a lot of coaxing. There was a lot of questioning, and definitely the SUDS unit. And the SUDS, we do that with exposure
Right.
therapy and that sort of thing too. But I have, let's see what Charity Marie says. Great point about BSP can be done right away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you invite a person to come to the office to get to know them, like one session, and then you brain spot, or do you say, hey, what's up, let's brain spot?
Exactly. Whatever the person wants to do.
Okay.
Whatever the person wants to do.
Right. So there may be some people who would feel more comfortable if they have had a minute or two, but again, it's led by the client.
Exactly.
How are we gonna go out of business with all your brain spotters out there?
Well, that's the idea. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's the idea. Yeah. I was after Senegal, I went on a little a trip, and one of the places that I went to was to see some brain spotting colleagues and friends who live in Istanbul, in Turkey. And while we were there, we're chatting, we're out in the park, we're chatting, and one of their friends, her husband, who's from Afghanistan, and he's like, I don't have trauma. Not in English, he was speaking in Arabic, there was some translation going on. He's like, I don't have trauma, blah, blah, blah. I was like, interesting. And anyway, so we're talking about brain spotting, and he's like, that would not work on me. And I was like, are you sure? Do you want do you want to? And he's like, sure. Right. So I did exactly what I did with you. I did not even ask him to think of an issue. I just asked him to look to the left, and he looked to the left, and within like 10 seconds, his eyes welled up with tears.
Wow.
And then I asked him to look directly ahead, and then I asked him to look to the right. And then he was like, whoa, what happened? And so then he decided, he's like, oh, my wife was standing over to the right. That's why my eyes welled up with tears.
And I love her so much.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, we're going to move her out the way. Let's move her out the way. We're gonna move her. So we moved her out the way. He's still standing in the same position. And I was like, look to the right again. And he looked to the right again. And again, within 10 seconds, his eyes welled up with tears.
Wow.
And he's like, I'm like, that's just, your system is coming online because where we look affects how we feel. And you see this with folks talking, and they'll look up, it's just the body's natural way of helping to regulate what they're talking about. But we usually tell people, look at me, do this. We just need to allow people to sort of look wherever they want to look, because they're gonna come back to you.
Yeah.
So,
and because your body is, so it's almost like, the book, of course, we know the book, The Body Keeps Score. So your body keeps the score. It knows what has happened. You don't have to speak it. You don't have to tell anyone. You don't even tell yourself in a way, because, we push stuff down and we regression
right.
and that. And
as a way of protection,
right?
That's, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to keep myself safe, so I'm not going to think about that. But when it comes to brain spotting, your body is not aware that you're trying to keep that hidden, and it just kind of releases it, huh?
The way in which it's framed, the system comes online, and it starts accessing the memories, the feelings. But the idea is not just like a free-for-all. The idea is, with your brain spotting practitioner therapist, that this is framed towards healing and recovery.
I love it.
And before I forget, I want to say, everybody can get the book. It's called Brainspotting. It's by David Gran. It's on Amazon. I think it's like $12.39, and you can buy it on Amazon and read it. It tells you about brain spotting, and it's written in sort of simple language. So it's, sometimes, I get a book and I was like, oh God, I need to get my medical dictionary.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I need to open Google Scholar, because wait, what's this now? The anterior cingulate of, what part of the brain is that? I gotta go figure that out and then come back so I can understand. It's not that kind of book. It's a very accessible book for
And that's David
More focused.
Grand with the
Yes.
Grand.
Yes.
Okay.
David Grand, Grand,
Oh,
PhD.
B like boy.
Sorry?
B like boy. B like boy or G like grant like go.
Grand as in a grand scale. G
Okay,
like,
I got
yeah.
it right then. Okay, boom, there it is. Oh,
Yeah.
brain spotting, but brain shot.
Yes. Brain Spotting by David Grand. Yeah.
Y'all know what it's supposed to be. Put a P in there. So I have one more thing, and then we're gonna wrap up a little bit. But so it's used with trauma, definitely,
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, anything that ails the mind, body, spirit. I guess,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Good to know. And then when a person comes in and they want brain spotting, are there any times that you feel like it may not be good for someone?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Brain Spotting comes in. If somebody's saying they're like queasy, like I'm not really sure, blah 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 blah, I will say to them, do you want an article? Because sometimes when I get engineers or people with PhD in mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of really technical articles, I just send it to them. I am yet to have someone come back the next week and be like, so I have a few questions about this article that I read.
Uh-huh.
Never happened. It's never happened. It's again, people want to feel heard and connected and stuff like that. So I go with it. But people come in, I just do brain spotting. I mean, I've done trainings. One of the questions that we get asked the most is, can we do brain spotting with someone who's pregnant? And
Oh.
I have done trainings with people, they volunteered to do a demo. It's online. I can only see from their shoulder up. They do the demonstration, and then when they're done, they go, "Oh, yeah, I'm 7 months pregnant." I'm like, "Okay, okay." All right, so then I just said to people, "See, you can do brain spotting with people who are pregnant,
You are pregnant. There
right?
you go.
It's right.
That's it.
It's not a thing." The one thing that I should mention as well is that in addition to sort of doing what I sometimes jokingly call the trauma and drama of therapy, you do brain spotting. You can also do brain spotting on what we call expansion, which you can do brain spotting to work towards achieving a goal.
Mm.
All right. You can use brain spotting. So there's somebody, we don't know who it is because of confidentiality, but there's somebody walking around with an Oscar um, who brain spotted their character.
Ooh.
So they became their character and they brain spotted that character, and they have an Oscar now. I don't know who it is, but there's somebody around the world that
That's
that has
incredible.
right. And you can do brain spotting that way. People can come in. You can do it with singers. Somebody who's having a hard time, sort of they're singing a particular song and it's just hard for them. You can brain spot them as they go through the song. People can do characters. This is part of our brain spotting phase 3 training. Is we have an actor come in. They do a monologue of some sort first, and then David teaches phases 3, 4, and the master class, and then he'll brain spot the character,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll have the person develop the character. Oh, and sometimes it's not a character in the way they develop the character during the brain spotting process is not necessarily what's part of their script, right? So they might say, "Oh, the reason why my dad is angry is because he lost his dad at 15." But that's not necessarily part of the script that they were given. But it
Right.
helps them to get in character. And then it's always amazing when people redo the monologue after their brain spotting process. It's it's mind blowing. It is
Right.
mind blowing the transformation that takes place. Also, this is available on ESPN. I'm not sure exactly where, but somewhere in ESPN. I can't remember his name, but there's a former Yankees who had brain spotting for the Yips. what is his name? His name went out of my anyway. But in the 90s, and he did Brainspotting because he had the yips, when you can't throw the ball,
Oh,
right? And so he did Brainspotting. He did Brainspotting around that, and there's a short film about his process and doing
wow.
Brainspotting. So it can be used for expansion. Sorry.
When you figure that out, let me know. And
Yeah, it's just
charity.
I just can't remember his name. By charity, I just can't remember his name right now. But anyway, all of this to say, it's not just about sort of doing the sort of the therapy kind of depression, anxiety. You can also expand, and we can also, sometimes people may have something traumatic, but they don't want to necessarily do the trauma. Like, for example, somebody could have been in a terrible car accident, and they don't necessarily want to. Their goal is not to process what happened in the car accident. Their goal is, I want to be able to drive on the highway again.
Right.
And so we use Brainspotting that way, in an expansive mode, in an expansive process. I want to be able to sing this song really well. I want to finish all of my applications to law school or med school. These are expansive processes rather than, let's work in the anxiety about applying to law school.
Right.
What do you like? I need to finish. That's my goal. I have 8 schools that I'm applying to, and I want to finish by January 31st. Well, what do you need, right? That's an expansive process, as opposed to focusing in on the anxiety. And that's one of the beauties of Brainspotting.
Now that brings me to another question, because your girl over here has ADHD big time. That would be big. Does it help with that? Is there some kind of magic that I need to holler at you about offline and get an appointment going on? Because
let's think about what happens with people that have ADHD.
Oh, child.
If you're undiagnosed with ADHD, you're lazy, you're disorganized. What's wrong with you?
Oh, come on.
But those things have an impact on us emotionally.
Yeah.
Brainspotting, is it really laziness? Right? And your brain, you can use Brainspotting, and there are a lot of people, both with diagnosed and undiagnosed, but people that are officially diagnosed with ADHD who elect not to take medication, right? As part of their treatment. And Brainspotting can help with that. Brainspotting can help with helping the system be organized. It doesn't eliminate your ADHD, right? But it helps you focus. It helps you be organized. It helps you not be critical of yourself if you forget something. It helps you to be organized around stuff. This is my late in life discovery. I'm like, I think I have the attention deficit part of ADHD. I just in the last month. I think that's what's going on with me. But I've also learned, a lot of ways in which to live with that.
Right.
So, my keys, my car keys, and my house keys are in the exact spot. I could need to go to the bathroom like yesterday. I'm putting those keys in the exact spot, because the moment I don't know where they are.
Listen,
I have no idea where they are. So
listen, right here on this hook.
Exactly, right? But you also think about the messaging that you get around. You're lazy. You do a lot of careless mistakes. What's wrong with, right? And if your system can clean that up, and if your system can be in a space where this is part of my uniqueness, right? And these are the things that I need to do to help me to function without judgment and not taking on what other people are saying. Brainspotting can help with that. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that right? So
100%. So listen, I am late in life diagnosed. I was teaching MFT students, and I told them, let's write the criteria for ADHD on the board. And I was like, okay, give me the first one from the DSM. Okay, what's the second one? Oh, what's the third one? Oh. By the time I wrote down the fourth one, I was like, oh my God, that's me. You know, I'm born in 1960, so nobody knew nothing about no ADHD.
Right.
But I had protective factors, which you will understand. My parents, because they
Right.
never made me wrong. They knew I wasn't lazy because I both had inattentive and hyperactive,
Right.
and I still do. But I'm trying to do a doctorate program now, and I get paralyzed. I get paralyzed in the I cannot focus. I really want to do this, and people are like, well, why don't you just do it? Why did you wait so late? Now, here's the thing: I'm smart, so I waited really late. I did 3.5. I did 3 papers in 3.5 days. I got A's on all of them, but I was driving myself crazy.
Right. But here's the thing. I tell people, this is a pet peeve of mine. I gotta say, this is a pet peeve of mine. Don't be asking people while they're getting a doctorate. It's none of your damn business. If somebody wants to get a doctorate at 72, they can go get a doctorate at 72.
Thank you.
Unless you're writing the check to pay the tuition,
or
shut
the
up.
Education.
Just
Hello.
shut up.
Yes.
Be supportive. Be like, wow, congratulations.
Yes.
Let me know if I can be supportive of you in any way.
Anyway, hello.
Because one of the things that you can possibly do, especially if you're a friend, you might be, all right, so I need to start this paper. I need to start this paper at 9 o'clock. Can you just text me and see if I've started the paper at 9 o'clock? That's what I need for you to do. Hey, Sean Lorraine, did you start that paper? Girl, I was binge watching.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to stop. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Let me refocus myself. Turn Netflix off and go start the paper. That's how you can help. Not this other nonsense about why you're doing it, what are you going to do with it. It's none of your business. Be supportive.
I love you, John. I love you. Absolutely. It's so funny because I met a woman. We met a woman in where did I go? Temecula. And just such a delight, a beautiful woman, such a delight. And when I told her, that I was doing my doctorate, I think my friends told her, and she said to me on the side, she said, congratulations, you do that. She said, I've been through it. And she was in her 50s. She said, and don't let nobody tell you you don't need it or any of that. You're doing it for you. And that's 100%. That is 100% the case. It actually doesn't even have anything to do with me trying to prove something with having ADHD and getting a doctorate. It actually was kind of like when I started getting the doctorate, that's when I was like, oh yeah, you 100% have it. You know what I mean? But I made it this far. But I love what you said too about just people's judgment and you're lazy and you're this and you're that. And it's like, no, I'm not lazy. And when you look at kids and people say, well, why, do you think the child wants to hear you fussing at him all day or her all day, every day for something? Do you think that you might need to look further to see what the problem is rather than leave it at that space of they're lazy, they just don't want to do it, they're hard-headed, they're bad kid, all those things. Fortunately for me, I did not have that growing up, which is why I can call it my superpower right now, because I do have more energy than any other 62-year-old you'll meet on this planet. I can pretty much guarantee that. But, it is so true. And I do want like something other than medication that will be able to help me focus, hone in on it, because I really mean to do these things.
Well, when I worked in community mental health, I used to work with young kids and teenagers, and I would often say to the parents, so this is my homework. And, if I was giving them something fantastic, I'm like, you're going to have to say more yes than no. To your child, you're going to have to say more yeses than no's.
Yes.
You got to find a way to say, yeah, but I'm like, there's no but. That's the homework. Figure it out.
That's it.
And people would be like, I'm like, you spend a lot of time all day going, no.
Yeah.
Why don't you just try?
Don't.
Right, exactly. Why don't you just try to see how you can find something that you can actually say yes to?
Yes. Oh my God.
Right. So, yeah.
100%.
I want to encourage you if you haven't tried it. So Brainspotting uses bilateral music. Which is music. You don't have to, but we do, which is music that goes from right ear to left ear in an unpredictable manner. Now,
Oh,
EMDR uses bilateral music, which is right ear, left ear, or also tappers. So the bilateral is the unpredictable movement from right ear to left ear. So you might want to see if that helps you as you're writing your papers or you trying to get organized. You
yeah.
pop it in. If you have like Apple Music, iTunes,
Uh,
Spotify, Tidal,
you know, I have
it's
ADHD. I have them all.
it's also it's
Well,
also on YouTube. Although the YouTube ones, you might get an ad or something. But
now
you
is it
can
bio? Spell it for me.
bio
Bio.
bio and then lateral lateral.
Got it. Because I know a guy who does bilateral beats, and I met him on
Yes.
Clubhouse, and we have talked about it, but I haven't used it. But I did find on YouTube some jazz for studying,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was something about, and it really helped me.
Yeah.
And my was like, "Aren't you going to turn that off?" I'm like, no, because I'm trying to get this done. If I turn it off, I ain't gonna do nothing." So I thank you for that. I'm gonna put it in there for anybody else who might need that. Camellia says she needs brain spotting a lot. Camellia, John's gonna train me, and so thank you for that. Well,
Yeah.
John, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much. You are
Thank you.
amazing as Charity and Latasha definitely can attest, and everyone here. I did put your social media. It doesn't say that's what it is, but oh yeah, there we go. It does.
Yeah.
Those two social media, his YouTube channel, his LinkedIn, and what is your website? Oh, I know.
Coast
www.westcoastpsychotherapy.com. Are you on Instagram?
I'm not on Instagram.
Okay. Uh,
Instagram, TikTok, it's too overwhelming. I'm like, I can't, like, I barely have a couple of things on the YouTube channel. So I hope to put some more on there. But people got Instagram, I was like, I don't know. Started
yeah.
with being overwhelmed. It's like deer in the headlights. What am I gonna put on the Instagram? So anyway,
Yeah. You
no,
get somebody else to do it. That's the key.
yeah.
delegate, and then delegate some more. Well, again, it has been so great having you on. Thank you so much for joining us on Boss Talk. Boss Talkers, tell John how much you love him in the chat. As we close out tonight, you can find him at westcoastpsychotherapy.com. You can find him on LinkedIn and YouTube, as I put those links in the chat. And if you want to just put in John Edwards brain spotting and he'll pop up everywhere.
I will pop up everywhere. Yes.
So if you're out there and you think you need it, he does it across the waves, the airwaves as well. So this was great. I really was curious about this. I'm so excited to get in on your next training.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And folks can also go to brainspotting.com, which is the main brainspotting website, operated by David Grand. And there you can find about different trainings and more information about brain spotting and some videos by David and stuff like that. Also, if you type in brain spotting in YouTube, some stuff will pop up as well.
Yes, definitely. There you go. Well, again, thank you, y'all. Thank you for coming back tonight. We appreciate it. We'd love to see you. We'll be back next week. Don't forget, follow me on social media. That's at Living Loved Healing on IG, at Living Loved Healing on Facebook. And we are back here every Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So we love you. Rhonda says, John, thank you. Very informative. I learned a lot tonight. Camellia sent a thumbs up and a thank you. And so this has been great.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So this is Shauna Ray, your girl, saying good night on Boss Talk. That's bold, one of a kind, sensational superstars. and that's you. We'll see you next week. Peace. Shalom, y'all.